Bill McKibben needs no introduction. His first book, The End of Nature, 36 years ago, was the first book on climate change for the general public. He's written a total of 19 books and many, many articles. He's helped start hundreds of rallies with Step It Up in 2007, which evolved into 350.org in 2008, which has been a leading climate advocacy group since. More recently, he founded Third Act for youngsters over 60. He's spoken at many events and rallies and has been an inspiration and leader for many of us. Please welcome Bill McKibben.
Well, thank you guys so much. Can you hear me okay? Am I audible there? I'm going to operate on the assumption that I am and just continue on. You're seeing me in the front seat of my Kia EV. It's been that kind of day, a lot of organizing, a lot of driving. Night is coming to the Green Mountains of Vermont. You may just be able to see a little bit of that behind me through the back window. But it's been an absolutely beautiful day here, and the trees are beginning to bud out, and the world, the peepers are making noise from the vernal pools, and the world seems right for the moment. But of course, the world isn't quite right, and that's the first thing I'm going to talk with you about just for a minute. I'll get through the nasty stuff first, and then we'll move on to the much more hopeful tale that we have to tell about where we are right now and what you can do to help. Look, Bob's right. I wrote the first book about what we then called the greenhouse effect back in 1989, which is a long time ago. And would that I had been wrong. I think in retrospect, the years that I was writing about in a way were 2023 and 2024 and 2025. Because right now we're seeing the sudden dramatic spike in the planet's temperature. After a long and dangerous ramp up, now it's suddenly turning very, very sharply hotter. Each of the last 24 months has been the hottest month of its kind, the hottest March, the hottest April ever recorded. The temperatures on this earth are the hottest that they've been in at least the last 125,000 years. And that's now beginning to do, it's actually more than beginning to do precisely what the scientists told us it was going to do. We measure this sometimes in the extreme events that we see around us, the remarkable fires like the ones in Los Angeles that burned the home of my first boyhood memories in Altadena on day 2 of that great blaze, or in the extraordinary storms, Hurricane Harvey that dropped more rain on Texas than any place has ever gotten rained on in America. But we're also now seeing the effects of that increase in temperature on the most basic physical systems of the Earth. The jet stream, which operates because of the temperature differential between the pole and the equator, is breaking down as that temperature differential decreases as we melt ice up north. And now the jet stream gets stuck for long periods of time in strange wobbles and long periods of either drought or flood. The Gulf Stream, the currents of the great oceans, especially the Atlantic, that carry 100 times the volume of the Amazon River, they've begun to flicker because that ice, as it melts up on Greenland, is pouring fresh water into the North Atlantic and changing the differences in salinity and hence density that drive those giant oceanic conveyor belts. The world's great rainforests in the Amazon and in the Congo are drying out now. And we're seeing things like fires in the interior of the Amazon, far from human disturbance, that are a result of the fact that the temperature regime is breaking down there. So at every front, we're seeing extraordinary and dangerous shifts. As of now, we've increased the temperature of the Earth about 1.6 degrees Celsius. And we're on a path to increase the temperature of the Earth about 3 degrees Celsius before the youngest people in this audience tonight are my age. 3 degrees Celsius is, 5, 6 degrees Fahrenheit. If we allow anything like that to happen, then we will not have a planet like the ones we're used to having. Just to give you some idea, the UN estimates that that would be enough to produce somewhere between 1 and 3 billion climate refugees. Texans know better than others that even a couple of million refugees on our southern border was enough to discombobulate the politics of this entire country. Imagine 1,000 times that flow of people who have to leave their homes because their homes are underwater or on fire. So really the most important challenge humans have ever had is not to stop global warming, it's too late for that, but to stop it short of the place where it cuts civilizations off at the knees. And if we're going to do that, we're going to have to move with extraordinary speed. This is a timed test, and the time is now extremely short. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the gold standard scientists, have told us that we need to cut emissions in half by 2030 in order to have some hope of staying on the time on the pathway that we laid out in Paris just a decade ago. 2030 by my watch is 4 years and 8 months away, 7 months away. That doesn't leave us much time at all for making a deep, deep fundamental change. So this is, no kidding, an extremely scary moment. And doubly so, of course, because we're, for the moment, in in an environment in our country politically where Washington is no longer working in good faith to try and solve these problems. Indeed, just the opposite, at this point, working hard to make them worse on every front. The EPA is being gutted. NOAA and NASA are being gutted. There was an article today from Charles Keeling, who's the man literally in charge of keeping track of how much carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere. And he was pointing out that the budget cuts at NOAA may imperil even that most basic task of keeping that record of the atmospheric concentration of CO2 that's been kept at Mauna Loa since 1959, keeping that record intact. So I do not mean to in any way downplay the seriousness of the situation and where we are. But I do want to talk about the fact that in one strange way, I find myself more optimistic about our possibilities than I have at any time in that 36-year period. And that's really for one simple reason. Look, the essential problem behind climate change has never been hard. We know that it's caused almost entirely by the burning of coal and oil and gas. And hence its solution is the end to burning coal and oil and gas. That's the simple answer and the difficult thing to do, because those things have been at the absolute core of our economy. But that's shifting rapidly. Scientists and engineers have done remarkable work. They've driven down the price of energy from the sun, from the wind, and from the batteries to store that power when the sun drops or the sun goes down or the wind drops. They've dropped the price of those 90% in the last decade. Sometime in the last 3 or 4 years, we passed a place on this planet where it became cheaper to produce energy from the sun and the wind than it did from setting stuff on fire. We now live on an Earth where the cheapest way to produce power is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. That is a completely novel and powerful moment in human history, in many ways as interesting as the moment back in the 18th century when we learned to control the combustion of fossil fuels and touched off the Industrial Revolution, because it means that we could liberate ourselves in short order from what are the many tyrannies of fossil fuel combustion. And in the places around the world that have seized this opportunity, we're really starting to see that change kick in. California has done as much as any state in the union to embrace the possibilities. They put up an awful lot of solar panels and wind turbines and batteries. And sometime in the last 18 months, they've reached a tipping point. Most days in California now, for long stretches of the day, 100% of the electric generation is accomplished by renewable energy. That means that at night, when the sun goes down, most nights in California, the biggest source of supply to the grid are those batteries that have been soaking up excess sunshine all afternoon, batteries that didn't exist on the grid 3 or 4 years ago. The bottom line in California is that the fifth largest economy in the world is using 44% less natural gas to generate electricity than it did 2 years ago. 44% drop in 2 years. That's the single most encouraging statistic I've heard in all the decades that I've been working on this problem. And of course, you guys are well positioned to know that California is not alone, that Texas is now putting up renewable energy faster than the Golden State. Um, um, Putting up lots and lots of solar panels, lots and lots of turbines, and especially in the case of Texas, more and more and more batteries all the time. That this is the thing that's stabilizing the Texas grid and allowing it to maintain itself during periods of stress and strain, um, um, and that there's much, much more room to go. One of the ways you can tell that there's much more room to go, of course, is just how scared the fossil fuel industry is by this. And you can tell that in Texas because this session of the legislature is busy trying to pass one stupid law after another. My favorite is the one that makes anyone who's going to put up a megawatt of renewable energy also put up a megawatt of gas-fired energy. It's kind of DEI for fossil fuels, I think, affirmative action quotas for natural gas. And it's a sign of precisely how panicked hydrocarbon headquarters in Houston has become about the state of play in Texas and around the world. The thing that really worries them, of course, is what's happening in China, where something like 2/3 of the world's clean energy has been installed in the last 10 years. China is, forget petro-states, China is now emerging as the first electro-state in the world, with vast, vast, vast amounts of solar and wind power. Coal-fired power generation in China dropped 5% year on year in the first quarter of this year because there's just so much sun and wind now. And they're also figuring out how to drive on this stuff. Half the cars sold in China last year came with a plug attached to them. You can get a good, and I mean good, EV for $10,000 or $12,000 now in China, and those cars are selling around the world. The Chinese are clearly going to own the world's auto industry unless we get our act together very fast. China's used about 10% less gas this year than they did last year. Demand is starting to drop off a cliff, which is one reason. The other one is our insane set of tariffs and things. That West Texas Intermediate's at $55 a barrel at the moment. um, um, so you could say that we're moving in the right direction, and we are. Given 40 years, we get where we need to go. 40 years from now, we're going to run the planet on sun and wind just because it's so cheap. Our problem, of course, is that if it takes us anything like 40 years to get there, the planet we run on sun and wind is going to be a broken planet because the physics of climate change is moving even faster at the moment than this transition. The International Energy Agency estimates that we'd have to increase by about 50% the pace at which we're installing renewable energy in order to get back on the net zero by 2050 global pathway. Increasing by 50% is hard, especially in the face of adverse political circumstances, but it's not impossible. It's not a ridiculous, absurd number. It's a doable one if we get to work, which is what I want to talk with you all about tonight. We need to figure out ways to increase the pace of that transition. And the way that a bunch of us have seized on to do this is what we're calling not Earth Day, but Sun Day, which will happen at the autumnal equinox on September 21st this year. Groups of all kinds across the country are rallying to take a big part in this celebration of renewable energy. Groups like Third Act, but also the Sierra Club. I was in Tennessee on, I guess, I don't know, the Thursday before last, to meet with all the chapter heads and staff from across the country, where Ben Jealous and Emily Gorman laid out ambitious plans for the club to be a leader in this Sunday effort. So we need all of you in Austin, all of you in Texas, thinking about things like parades of EVs and e-bikes, opening up homes of people with heat pumps to show their neighbors, breaking new ground for new solar arrays, all the kind of teach-ins and concerts and things that you can think of to make that day special and powerful. That's because the job is to change our sense of this new energy. We've been talking about sun and wind as alternative energy for as long as I can remember, but it's not alternative energy anymore. It's no longer the Whole Foods of energy, nice but a little pricey. It's the Costco of energy now. Cheap, available in bulk, off the shelf, ready to go. If we can get that message across, then we can begin fairly quickly to make all the changes in all the jurisdictions that would make it possible to move with the speed that we need to at this point. For instance, putting up rooftop solar in the US costs 3 times as much as it does in Europe or in Australia. And it's no surprise that those places have 3 times as much. That's mostly because we have much, much more cumbersome permitting processes. You got to get the building inspector out a couple of times to look at your roof, on and on and on. And that really is what drives up the price now that the panels are really cheap. We don't need to do that. We have software for granting essentially automatic approval from pictures and videos from people's roofs, on and on and on. That's been in use in some jurisdictions, Tucson, Arizona, for instance, where because of that, the rate of installations has doubled and tripled. We can do that around the country. In Germany, in the last 2 years, as many as 3 million apartment dwellers have installed what they call balcony solar. You just go to Home Depot, whatever they call it in Germany, and buy a panel that you can hang off the balcony and then of your apartment and just plug it into the wall. And often people are producing a quarter of the power they use. These things cost $600-700. It's an amazing thing that's illegal in almost the entire United States. Underwriters Lab has never gone and certified these things. You'd need lots and lots of permits to put them on. But that's beginning to change. The Utah legislature, of all places, by unanimous vote in both houses, passed a new law 2 weeks ago permitting this, demanding the permitting of this balcony solar in the Beehive state, which is one of the things to really relish about the moment that we're in. We're used to thinking about the ideology of renewable energy, that it's something that liberals would like. But in fact, the polling data shows that it's remarkably popular across the ideological spectrum, as almost as popular with Republicans and independents for different reasons, I think. For conservatives, having solar panels on your rooftop, I think, is often a way to make sure that your home is entirely your castle, cut off in every way from the rest of the world, that you can defend with your AR-15. For liberals, it's like the groovy power of the sun is letting us network everything together. We can work across those kind of divides, and we need to. And it's one of the things that'll be happening as we approach this Sun Day, which, by the way, you can find out more about at sunday.earth. Sun. The need or the possibility for a kind of national day of action is really important right now, I think. In 1970, there may be people in the room who are old enough to remember the first Earth Day, like I can. That first Earth Day brought 20 million Americans into the streets. It was the single biggest demonstration in American history. That's about 10% of the then population of the US. And as a result, within the next 2 years, a corrupt Republican administration, Richard Nixon's, gave us the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, the EPA, the Endangered Species Act. It had absolutely no choice because people had so dramatically changed the politics of this country that nobody really could stand in the way. That's where we need to go now. And I'll just end this little sermon by saying that one of the groups we really need to do this work, and you may have a few of them in the room, is older people like me. We started Third Act because I listened to a few too many people my age say, oh, it's up to the next generation to solve these problems. And the next generation is doing a fantastic job. Look, I love working with Greta Thunberg. She's one of my favorite people in the world. But if we've got 4 years and 4 months to deal with this, she may be Prime Minister of Sweden someday, but it's not going to be in 4 years. We've got to provide some serious backup. There's 70 million Americans over the age of 60. We have most of the country's wealth, about 70% of its financial assets. We punch above our weight because we all vote. There's no known way to stop old people from voting. So we have real possibilities. We've got about 100,000 people now at Third Act, and they've been doing incredible work at the local level, figuring out how in state after state to lobby the public utility commissions or the public service commissions for huge change, huge efforts at the national level, where we've been doing things like taking on the banks that Citi, Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, that are the biggest funders of the fossil fuel industry. We had a big day of action a year ago where we were outside all those banks all across 100 cities across the country. I was in DC and we shut down the banks by blocking the doors for an afternoon. We're too old to sprawl on the sidewalk for hours on end. So instead we went to the Goodwill and we got every rocking chair that they had in the greater Washington area. And that's what we used to block the doors. The New York Times the next day called it the Rocking Chair Rebellion. So it's really been fun to watch this movement grow and really fun to unite with everybody around these questions of clean energy. Look, standing up to the depredations of the fossil fuel industry has been a huge part of my work for many years. We've beat the Keystone Pipeline with everybody's help. We've had this massive fossil fuel divestment campaign. There's this beautiful set of campaigns in state after state to set up these climate super funds to make polluters pay for the damage that they're doing. And this is all really important, but most of it dates from the period when fossil fuel was cheap compared to renewable energy. That's no longer the case. I want to reiterate, we live on a planet where the cheapest way to make power is to point a sheet of glass at the sun. And what that means is we've now got the economic wind in our sails, economic gravity working in our direction. The biggest threat to the fossil fuel industry is the fact that we know how to do the same thing, just cheaper and cleaner and better. And we can do it in ways, as rural Texans are discovering, that allow us to support all those communities across the state, to build schools, on and on and on. So, truly important to figure out how to make this happen a little faster. That's what Sunday is about. And we're really hopeful that you guys will figure out creative and fascinating ways to make the case right where you are and where you know better than anybody else how to make that case in a way that will resonate. My face is turned red because someone just turned on their taillights in the parking lot. But I've come to an end anyway. I've told you all the things I can think of. I'm not going to guarantee you that we're going to win this fight. I don't know. We're in a lot of trouble, and the physical damage from climate change is accumulating very fast. Its momentum is large. But I know that we have possibilities we've never had before, and so I'm determined to figure out how we can seize those opportunities and get to work. I'm going to stop there, Bob. If I've got a few minutes, if there's an easy way to have people ask a question or two, I'm happy to do it. But y'all maybe have more important things to get onto anyway in the course of your meeting.
No, we would love to ask you a few questions. Am I audible?
Indeed you are now. Yes.
Okay. I have a question that I'm very interested in your reaction. The science of what's going on is often pretty bleak, pretty gloomy, and there is a need for urgency and not to feel like, oh, okay, so there's a problem that one day we'll have to address. But on the other hand, all of the research suggests that if we say how gloomy and doomed it is, then we lose them. They don't listen. So how do you manage that balance between the need to communicate urgency and the need to really be straight about how bad it is?
So it's a very good question. I try to be pretty straightforward, as you can tell, about where we stand. But now that we can talk honestly about the prospect of clean energy coming fast, then it makes it much easier. When you can give people a hopeful vision for the future, a vision, that works on lots of levels, a vision where people are able to control their own energy destiny, not rely on Saudi Arabia or Russia or the Permian Basin for their future, but on the sun and wind that's available in their communities. That makes it much easier to do. I see in the chat that people were asking where those statistics are available about what's going on. I keep everything up to date in this free newsletter I do almost every week called The Crucial Years, which you're easy enough to Google and find. I have a book coming out in August called, with apologies to George Harrison, Here Comes the Sun. And the Sunday.Earth website should have a lot of these numbers up on them pretty regularly as we're psyching people up for what's going on. So you can keep track of this rapid changes and see them happening, not just here, not just in China, but increasingly in places around the world. In Pakistan last year, because there were a lot of cheap panels available that kind of floated across the border from China, Pakistanis installed the equivalent of half their country's national electric grid in the course of 1 year, just by putting panels on their rooftops without government intervention of any kind. It's a staggering story now being repeated across large swaths of Africa. So there are some really hopeful things underway out there.
Okay, I'm sure there's a lot of people who would like to ask a question. We have some people who are representing their climate organizations, and I want to give them the first chance. So if one of you who's about to speak in a minute would like to ask him a question, please come up here and to ask that question. And I'm going to let you, I'm going to try to change the controls so we can actually see the, come around here. Take this. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Okay. Can you hear me, Bill?
I can indeed.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm another old guy, so I'm in the same boat. But the question I have, we live in Texas, okay, and it's a oil and gas state, and you mentioned the kind of legislation that we're seeing. They're trying to take down renewables and batteries in multiple different ways. The bills keep coming, and we testify against them. We try to do things, but it's overwhelming. They have grassroots organization. They have money. The people who are in the Senate particularly know that if they don't cooperate with this, they'll be primaried. So, you know, I appreciate all your experience. What insight might you have for a red state like Texas? Thank you.
That's a very good question. So the way that people, and y'all who are following this, Doug Lewin is the reporter who's doing the really fantastic job of keeping up with Texas and what's happening. You know that there's a big fight on both sides here, because you're absolutely right. There's a lot of AstroTurf kind of grassroots, quote unquote, grassroots stuff funded by big oil. But there's also a lot. There was testimony last week on Senate Bill 819 that was just one county commissioner after another from rural parts of Texas saying, look, wind is how we fund our schools. You know, it's the best thing that happened to our community. That's why we're doing Sunday, to try and change this narrative in profound ways. And I think there's no way short of just doing the organizing to let people know what the possibilities are. There's some good groups out there. Project Greenlight is one that we work with that are good at helping get people together when there are hearings in localities and things like that. But it makes it much easier if there's a real national and statewide focus on the beauty, simplicity, and affordability of clean energy. That's hence Sunday.
Thank you. And I can assure you that we in Austin will be doing some impressive stuff for that day. So you want to come over here? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Bill, for everything you've said. I'm with the Windsor Park Neighborhood Association, the climate committee, and we've been trying to crack the code of how to build a movement that is grassroots, that is multi-generational in the very neighborhood. And what we've figured little by little, you know, falling time and time again, is that focusing on trees, and in this case, this program we came with, which is Shade the Streets, in which people, we have Tree Folks, this incredible nonprofit that provides the trees, and we just get people to sign up and take ownership of shading the streets of the neighborhood. And we have this EcoFest thing also that we came up with, kind of leading. We get people to pre-sign up and they get their trees. So my question to you is, as far as getting people involved, this is an indirect way of talking about the climate crisis, right? And how to lower our ambient heat. How do you see that this will this have traction? Or is this something do we need to get a little bit more direct in why we're doing this, and ultimately what's the purpose, or no? Keep it indirect.
I think that's a very smart way forward, and likely to be really successful, as long as it's coupled with this real commitment around generating clean energy too, because we can't. You know, that's the nub of it. There's nothing we can do in our communities that really will make up for the fact that we're continuing to pour carbon into the air but now that we can do that, now that we can couple messages around things like trees with messages around things like solar panels, I mean, they're a natural complement. If you're in an area with a lot of apartments, say, that balcony solar that I've been describing in Germany. That's a beautiful, beautiful message that everybody can participate in. We just have to change the law a little to make it possible, and change the law in a kind of deregulatory way that should be easy for Texans to get behind. That combination of things is a beautiful set of ways. But doing something on Sunday with shade and trees will be a beautiful contribution to all of this, and I'll look forward to seeing it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to ask you one more quickly. I'd like you to comment on tipping points. Do you think more needs to be said? It's my sense that scientists aren't really in agreement on when they would happen, but they're definitely in agreement that they will.
Yeah, I think most people now are sort of starting to understand that we're reaching some dangerous levels, and I think it's worth talking about that. But I think it's always worth trying to do it in a way that doesn't make people think there's no longer any real possibility. As you're right, we're always walking this fine line between getting people appropriately urgent and keeping them from shutting down. So for the moment, I'm most interested in spreading this message about the energy transition and the possibilities. I think it's the only thing that scales fast enough to allow us to meaningfully head off climate change. And I think if we don't get it done fast, then we're going to be talking about really grim topics like geoengineering the atmosphere to pour sulfur in or something instead, which we would do anything to try to avoid if we can.
I have a short question, and that is, isn't it much more important to sequester huge amounts of carbon dioxide, bring the greenhouse gas levels in the atmosphere down? Peter Fiakowski has a bunch of proposals that are not all that rational, but I think in principle he is right that
Yeah, it would certainly be useful to sequester some carbon. The problem is we don't yet know how to do it at an affordable scale, but people are getting better at it. And the good news is that we have a couple of technologies, trees and plankton, that are really good at it. And our job is to allow those to work as best as they can too. But job one here, even more important than sequestering carbon, is not pouring more into the atmosphere. If you walk into your bathroom and the bathtub is overflowing, the first thing you do is turn off the faucet to keep the problem from getting worse. Then you start rooting around trying to figure out how you make sure that the drain is working properly, or maybe you can make it work a little faster or something. But job one is to turn off the faucet. That's what the transition to clean energy is all about. Bob, I sense that we may have reached the end of questions there, because I can't hear you guys anymore. I can't hear you at all.
The microphone timed out. The microphone
go.
timed out.
Okay.
Done?
It's about time for me to go anyway.
So it doesn't work? Oh, it does. It does work. Does it work?
All right. Yeah, now I can hear you. So let's do one more question here.
Okay. I hesitated to come up here, but I've been talking to some people. Talking to some people about something called eco campaigns. How do you gamify sustainability so it's reward and recognition instead of gloom and doom? And I don't know if there's any appetite for that with this group, but I'm talking to EarthX people and South by Southwest. Hugh Forrest has just stopped being the head of that, and so there's some pretty nice interest about it. And so I wondered if that's something that we might talk about to get Sunday as part of it. I don't know who to talk to.
Well, you should definitely come up with some ideas and send them our way. And it's easy to do at the website. But in the meantime, we've already got one part that you all can help with. And when you go to sunday.earth, you'll see the beautiful logo for Sunday, which is half a sun to symbolize the fact that we're halfway there. Then there's a fantastic drawing tool that lets everybody draw their own version of this logo, finish the sun in an array of colors and styles and things. And there are tens of thousands now of those illustrations in the global gallery that attaches there. The more of them we get, the better, because it makes for a beautiful backdrop as we're doing Instagram and all the other things that one needs to do now to get this across. So if you have kids, anybody who has an artistic bent, get them hard at work doing that. It'll be a huge help. Guys, I'm going to sign off now because darkness has come to Vermont. I really want to thank you all for being part of this. And just to say, I'll look forward immensely to the pictures from Austin and on September 21st on the equinox. You guys are fantastic, and on we go.
We will definitely send them.
Fantastic. Take care, y'all.
There's about 100 people here.
Good stuff, guys. Onward, onward.
196.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to have some representatives from local climate organizations to briefly tell you about our organizations and how you can get involved and why you should get involved. I will start since we are hosting this. The Austin Sierra Club has been active in issues both locally and the state. The local issues have been around Austin Energy and trying to get more to shut down the coal plant and to get more solar energy in Austin, and the postcard that is going around. We work in coalitions, which is the way to go. We also have a superb outings program. You can go to Meetup Sierra Club and you can find out what's going on, short hikes and such. We also have an excellent conservation committee, which is looking out for environmental issues to deal with. We are supporting our state legislature work right now, and we need. I said that I thought we could get 10 people from this room to go tomorrow morning to the Capitol to do a literature drop. And so I hope I can get you to sign up here afterwards so we can go. Jay, 30 seconds.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah. So I'm Shane Johnson, he, him, helping lead the Texas Capitol Lit Drop. So we do have a QR code here that you can sign up as well, more directly if that's easier. But feel free to come talk to me if you have any questions. And hopefully that was clear and everyone could hear me on there. And then we also have another event on this Friday, basically an overview of all the clean energy and clean water legislation we're working on, and then a happy hour from 4:30 to 6 on Friday. So we have a QR code for that as well.
Great.
It's about an hour and a half or so, but you can leave early.
Okay, so the next person who is going to be speaking, and oops, that's wrong, is Nora for Third Act. Okay, just want to make sure that y'all who are going to be speaking come up to where you can do that. Anyway, we also work the way we have the climate committee structured, and I don't know how much my 3 minutes is left. Someone is timing us, but you can form your own action. If there's an area you want to lead in acting, the Austin Sierra Club will support you, and you can form an action team that will do that. Okay, I'm going to assume my minutes are up, and I'll go ahead with Nora.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nora Malarkey. Yes, it's Malarkey. I am with Third Act. I don't need to tell you a whole lot since Bill just introduced it. Bill McKibben has been one of my personal heroes in climate. Just about 30 seconds about me. I worked in water conservation and environmental education for most of my life. I spent the last 29 years before I retired at the Lower Colorado River Authority managing water contracts, and
drought. I was there for the last drought of record, 2008 to 2015, and I hope we don't get a worse one coming up. I retired in 2016 when people started saying, hey, why do we have to conserve? The lakes are full. And so I was just turning 60, do the math. I said, I'm going to start my third act. And so I did some consulting. COVID came around. I did some volunteer work. And then I heard about Third Act about a year and a half ago. Third Act of Texas launched about 15 or 20 of us last summer. So we're pretty young, although we're reaching 200. Our focus is elders, seniors that care about climate change and care about democracy. Now, I may be speaking to the choir here, but we have a lot of people that have never been in an organization before that just are really concerned. We've got people up in Dallas, Fort Worth, Kerrville, Houston, San Antonio. We're forming regional groups. I wanted to introduce you with Becky Halpin. Can you raise your hand? Becky's been very busy with, yay. Becky's our Power Up Communities campaign lead. Basically, there's about 3 campaigns. Power Up Communities dealing with power plants, things like working with the Sierra Club on Austin, going to the legislature, fighting the bad bills. We also have, we deal with climate fossil-free finance. We've had demonstrations in Houston helping the young people do demonstrations with Sierra, which is a big oil and gas conference last spring. We're also involved in the new Invisible. We're also interested in democracy. We've been going to the Hands Off and the Invisible marches. We're looking for people to join us. You can go to thirdact.org and you can find the working group. I would encourage you to go read through it. If you're interested, you can find our working group and you can join us there. Jonathan, our technology coordinator and assistant volunteer coordinator, I think it's, what is it? Join, what's the actual join what? There you go. So we'd love to have you. I guess that's all. You've heard a lot about us, so I'm going to keep going.
Hi, I'm David Overton, and I chair social action here at First UU Church. Is this working? Hold it really close. Just speak loud.
No, it's good.
Okay, so
We can't do that. Sorry.
okay. I'll speak loud. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm David Overton. I chair social action here at the church. If you're not that aware of UU, we have a long history of social action going back to the Civil War, the abolition movement, and the suffrage movement, and the civil rights movement, and on up to today. And here at First UU Austin, we do our social action work. It's organized into pillars. We have 5 pillars. They are immigrant rights, reproductive rights, LGBT rights, anti-racism, and climate change. Yeah. And these were identified based on a survey of the congregation, things that people are most committed to. And each pillar has a designated leader, and they organize activities for the congregation to get involved in. And the pillar leader for the climate pillar are Bob and Victoria. So they apparently run everything. We also have one other activity now during the legislative session. We have a rapid response program where we send out emails when bad bills need to be reacted to. And that helps people. We have 150 people we send them to, and they can drop cards and testify and call their representatives. And we sent out 25 rapid response emails in the last 6 weeks. So if you're interested in being on that list, let me know. And thank you all for being here.
Bruce?
Hello, my name is Bruce Meglin. I'm a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what Citizens Climate Lobby is. And I'd like to tell you something that you all can do, and I hope you do it tomorrow, because we're getting with the Texas legislators meeting. And so let me tell you a little bit about Citizens Climate Lobby. So by the numbers. So Citizens Climate, we welcome anybody who wants to work with Congress to enact major climate legislation, which will help clean up air pollution. Okay, thank you. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit, respectful grassroots organization, and we focus on getting legislation passed that reduces air pollution, in particular burning of fossil fuels. A little bit about me. I came from the nuclear power industry. I'm also from a major oil company. I draw a pension from a major oil company. Okay, so Citizens Climate Lobby. We have about 250,000 people across the U.S. in 380 chapters. We have about 11,000 supporters in Texas. The Austin chapter claims and about 2,500 supporters. Okay, so what have we accomplished? In 2023, we held 920 meetings with Congress. We sent Congress over 200,000 emails. We called Congress 80,000 times. We published 2,000 letters to the editors, and we published about 676 editorials. So in June of this past year, we went to Capitol Hill like we do every year. We had 432 meetings with Congress, and we had over 1,000 attendees. But that's not all we've done. This year, on April 1st, we went to the Texas Capitol, and we had 60 meetings up on the Texas Capitol, and we had 150 drop-in meetings. I'll tell you a little about what I'd like you to do, but just in closing, I'd like to quote our founder, Marshall Saunders, and he says, "I used to think that the important people were taking care of important problems. No. Preserving a livable world is up to us little people. What we do and do not do really counts." So kind of along what was talked about a little bit earlier, currently there are 2 proposed bills on Capitol Hill. This is the Texas Capitol Hill. 4313 would prohibit cities from using any funds, even grants or donations, for environmental and emission reduction projects. 4314 would prevent local governments from including environmental and emission reduction criteria when making purchasing decisions. Okay.
I'm going to add one more brief thing. I am also in CCL, and we fought to get the Inflation Reduction Act passed. Over CCL sent over 200,000 messages to Congress, and we also sent texts into the West Virginia and Arizona to get them to tell them to go ahead and let it go through. And the 3 people up here, Victoria, Bruce, and myself, total over 250,000 texts for the IRA. And it did pass. It was by the skin of its teeth in the last week, but it did pass. Okay, Camille?
I have some handouts. Anybody on your way out, pick them up.
Where's Camille?
And here's a sign up for Citizens Climate Lobby.
Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Cook. I work at Public Citizen. We're a nonprofit advocacy organization started by Ralph Nader in the 70s. We're a consumer rights advocacy organization. Just to tell you a little bit about what we do climate and clean energy stuff here in Texas. We have a main office in DC, and we have like another office here in Texas. We do a lot of good work. We work on different scales here in Texas. We work in Austin. We've done a lot of work with a lot of the organizations here, doing resource generation planning, trying to stop a new gas peaker plant from being built in Austin. Boo. We have supported with trying to get more solar energy in city buildings. I have some postcards here. I have 17 more. I would love to get them all filled out before I go. If you fill them out, please just give them back to me so we can all send them in to city council. So we do city council stuff. We do Texas-wide stuff. So we've been challenging the Texas Energy Fund. Who here knows what the Texas Energy Fund is? Okay, not too many people. So the Texas Energy Fund is a government handout from Republicans in the Congress and Texas legislature to give almost $10 billion to gas plants in Texas with taxpayer dollars. It's a shame. And we're trying to fight all of these plants from being built all over the state. We've been supporting different folks on the ground in Granbury, in Bastrop to try and stop these plants. That's one thing that we do. And then we also have been working a lot at the Ledge with a lot of other people here too, trying to stop these terrible bills. I don't need to go into the detail about how bad these bills are. You've heard it from everybody here. So if you want to get involved, you should definitely sign one of these postcards and give it back to me by the end of the night. Put your email in your phone if you'd like to be added to our listserv. And I'm here in the blue public citizen shirt. My name is Camille. If you have any questions or want to learn more about how to get involved, please look at me. Tap me, I guess. Yeah, Larry.
Texas Energy is going to grow. We need batteries. We need wind. We need solar. Yeah. That's all we're in.
Absolutely. And just to repeat to the folks on Zoom, yeah, the Texas Energy Fund has been a huge failure. Supply chain constraints, community pushback, just they can't make a profit, so they're dropping out. It's really crazy, and so I'm barely having to do any work because they're kind of all failing themselves. So, and yeah, the answer is clean energy, like we all know. So yeah, again, check me out. Get some of these postcards. Thank you so much.
Hi. Hi. Is that loud enough? Can you hear me?
You have to be as loud as you can.
Oh, okay.
Right, everyone.
I'm Susan Littman. I'm here representing the Austin chapter of Extinction Rebellion. And I've been admiring all the inside work that's being done in this room. And maybe there's kind of an inside-outside thing. Do y'all think that the huge numbers of people that have been showing up in the streets objecting to everything lately, does that make a difference too? So anyway, so Extinction Rebellion is, we're working in the streets. We are a decentralized, international, and politically nonpartisan movement. We use nonviolent direct action and sometimes civil disobedience to demand that governments, media, corporations, and the elite tell the truth, take immediate action, go beyond politics, and initiate a just transition to avert climate and ecological collapse. So in Austin, our chapter is kind of small. We're not doing civil disobedience at this time, but I have some handouts and some very interesting photos over in that corner to show you if you can come by. We had people glue their hands onto Chase Bank back in 2019 when the chapter was bigger. But currently our thing is street theater. We've got some amazing props. And we're going to meet this Friday at the Wildflower Unitarian Universalist Church on Oltorf and spruce up our props and maybe get creative, make some skits for to do our street theater and blast holes in a bunch of people's self-importance. Okay, but I want to mention that we're so concerned about the state of the direction of democracy at this time that we've been joining other protests that are in the street. So I'll put in a little plug for another organization we've been working with, which is Resist Trump and Resist Austin. If you go, you can go resisttrump.us and resistaustin.us. They're also using direct action, but they call it legal, nonviolent, direct resistance. And so they've been doing protests at Tesla outlets every Saturday from 10 to 12. So this Saturday, there's one in the north and one in the south. So if you want to express your creativity and have some fun and join us, meet me at that table. There's different ways to do it, but you can join us next Friday at Wildflower Church on Oltorf. 6:30 to 8:30 for our meeting.
Okay, Our next speaker is going to be, we're going to try to have a Zoom speaker speak, Eileen McGinnis with the parent climate community, I believe that is. And so go ahead and start speaking, and we'll let you know if we can hear you.
All right, sounds good. Can you hear me, Bob?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So hi, y'all. My name is Eileen McGinnis. I'm the founder of the Parents Climate Community. Sorry I couldn't be there with you in person tonight. The Parents Climate Community is an Austin-based 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to engage more caregivers, families, and allies in local, doable, meaningful climate action. So why does this matter? Why do we need more parents and families in the climate movement? One powerful reason is that climate communications research has shown that by far the single most powerful message worldwide that drives climate action is protecting the next generation. And caregivers and families are a natural fit to share this love-based intergenerational climate message. At the same time, it's hard, parents raising kids, it can be hard to find the time or energy to take action. It can be hard to come to evening meetings when it's your kid's bedtime. So we invite parents and guardians and families into the conversation by offering actions at times and places that work for the whole family to participate, like playgrounds and parks and schools. And we design actions like community art making or massive group bike rides for kids' health and climate rights that can create space for joy and community connection. And because, as you've already heard, there's so much amazing climate advocacy already happening in Austin, our goal is not to reinvent the wheel, but to partner and participate in coalitions, particularly around transportation and clean energy policy. We work with Texas Sierra Club and Public Citizen on the latter. And our goal is really to cultivate more public awareness of how children's health and climate future are being affected by the climate crisis, and to invite more families to get connected and participate in advocacy. So where you come in, one way would just be to get connected with us. Our website is parentsclimatecommunity.org. You can find out about events, fill out a volunteer form, sign up for our newsletter there. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. And one event we did want to highlight is 1 week from today, next Tuesday, May 13th. We're organizing a webinar on children's health and climate change with pediatrician Deborah Hendrickson, author of The Air They Breathe. And this workshop is really for everyone who works with or cares for kids or cares about kids' well-being, not just parents and guardians, but grandparents, childcare providers, pediatricians, and public health workers. So if you're on Zoom, I'll link to that webinar registration in the chat, but otherwise you can find out all that information at parentsclimatecommunity.org. And the last thing I want to say is just that I know not everyone in the audience has young kids in their home right now, but we really welcome everyone. Just like it takes a village to raise a child, it takes community members of all ages and stages to keep our all volunteer run nonprofit going. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you very much. Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean Wynn with the Plastic Reduction Project. What we do is mostly right there in the name, but more specifically is trying to get places to convert from single-use foodware, the disposable throwaway stuff, to reuse. So washing your dishes instead of throwing them away. Our approach tends to be financial, much like what Bill was talking about earlier today. The big tipping point happening right now is that wind has gotten cheaper than petrol. So we try to help demonstrate where reuse is more profitable than the throwaway stuff. That's usually the case for dine-in. For to-go, that's a more difficult nut to crack, but also possible. We do have two circular reuse systems for to-go orders that are up and running. One is a closed loop, and one is an open loop, which is just kind of getting started this first quarter. So businesses, but also schools our approach with schools isn't so much to ring up the principal's office and ask them if they'd like to buy some expensive equipment and change their processes, but to support students working from the inside. They can gather information, they can interface with the kitchen staff, they can put together a presentation, and then hopefully by the end of the semester, then they're doing a pitch that similarly will hopefully demonstrate that the school will create space in the budget, save money by going this route. And of course, environmental savings and better health outcomes as well. But sort of as a side benefit, you know, for your constituency of administrators. So if you would like to get involved, we're at plasticreductionproject.org, or you can grab me off to the side and we can exchange contact details, and look forward to hopefully hearing from people.
Hi, my name is Ali. I'm here from the Coastal Bend Sierra Club, and I have a YouTube channel called Clean Titans, where I'm interviewing people from around the world who are helping to clean up our future from all walks of life, including business, government, education, technology, writers, all kinds of people doing amazing things, small things and really, really big things. So I really appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and tell other friends about it, like, share, comment. Thank you. Clean Titans, like CLEAN, and Titans, TITANS, on YouTube. Thank you.
Windsor Park.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try to speak loudly so you can hear me. You're welcome. My name's Selwyn. I'm with the Windsor Park Neighborhood Association Climate Committee, and we've done a couple of things. This is Jose. You heard some of what we're doing there. One of the things we've done is we've created a climate resolution for the neighborhood, and we're going out to other neighborhood associations and trying to convince them to create climate resolutions as well, because people in neighborhood associations vote, and we think we can get some power behind that. So that's the short version. Go, Jose.
Yes, and real quick, our obsession is to try to get everybody involved and really have people engage and take ownership of the stewardship of the environment and climate change. And so we've done over the course of the last 2 years is trying to crack what's the model to get people engaged. So far the results are we've come up with this idea called Shade the Streets. So we canvass the neighborhood, try to get people to commit to plant a tree on their front yard so we can create corridors of shade. And then we canvass leading into this event called EcoFest. Last year was the first one. So the results was we ended up having around 500 attendees, and Tree Folks, who is the organization that collaborates with us, beat the record in how fast they give away the trees and how many, over 800 trees. So aside from that, that was an incredible, a little event that drew a bunch of organizations like Sierra or CCL, but also schools, and children had little activities to connect with nature. So we're having 3 more neighborhoods that want to kind of engage in a similar thing this fall. And that's kind of why we're here, kind of making a call, because we want particularly neighborhoods that are on the east side, but we're not closed, to kind of use our model, right? Get the funding from Roots and Wings from the city, and get all of the accelerators and all of the designs and project management assets that we have. So if you know anybody that would want to use this as a way to engage the community, we're here to support. So thank you.
Okay, that's the end of okay. Let me mention a few announcements about some upcoming activities. The Sierra Club has its annual picnic at Peace Park next Wednesday night. and you're welcome to join us. It's purely social. In addition, and I think we're Zoom folks, thank you very much for coming. We're pretty much through. We also have an event at the Sierra Club headquarters at 2 o'clock this Friday, where there's going to be, you can learn about the Texas legislature and then go have a beer at Easy Tiger. There's that activity. We also have an excellent speaker by Zoom on water issues. Water and climate are very connected. And so a former longtime head of the Texas Sierra Club will be speaking, and that's another opportunity. I'll be sending out an email, and if it is okay, I would like to go ahead and include all of you in that in the emails in the Sierra Club mailing list. If you don't want it, let me know, or unsubscribe once it's sent. So we also had 100 people here. That is a record for us by far. Thank you all for coming, and I hope our organizations can work together. And I am looking forward to Sunday. I was wondering when to next do something big, and it looks like Bill McKibben has decided for us. We need some people to help clean up. This is totally by volunteers. We did not hire any staff, and so if you can help clean up,